Hello and good time of day to all of you, my friends, here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Well, we said goodbye 2 weeks ago on the... I don't know, it was sad, but it was certainly a troublesome note at that time. When we talked about the Grand Prix tournament and the silence, the blue wall of silence surrounding that tournament, and I'm glad to report that the tournament will be taking place, and they will be starting tomorrow in Sharjah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this name right. That's the place. I'm not sure, is that in United Arab Emirates or somewhere that part of the world. First of the Grand Prix series, first tournament, and I saw a list of players, and I read about the format of the tournament. I was honestly very much surprised. I just thought, wow, they're going to be playing Swiss tournaments with such limited number of players. Anyway, so the whole field for the Grand Prix events is 24 players, and 18 of them will play in each tournament. It means that every player will get to play 3 out of 4. That I could understand, but of course 18 players in a tournament. I mean, maybe back in the old days in the bad old Soviet Union, I played tons of tournaments like this. But it's just impossible to imagine these days. And indeed, a 9-round Swiss. What is your opinion about this? Is that possible to run a Swiss tournament with such limited number of players? What's going to happen to the covers? What's going to happen to the pairings at the end of the tournament, when I assume it's possible that the leaders will have played each other already? And then coming to maybe to the last 2 rounds, having to go down there in a different point group, maybe a point or point and a half, if not 2 points below. How is that going to work out? I wonder about this. Yeah, unfortunately something happened with the browser here, and I cannot see a chat room. No, maybe it will come back. It's still loading. Okay. Yeah. Well, but we don't really have much to say about the tournament that hasn't started yet. You've probably seen the list of players. Some surprising entries over there. Salem Al-Saleh. He's a decent player, of course, but he's not quite making it by rating. John Ludwig Hammer. No, we expect to see this guy playing in Norway chess, but no, not quite, in the Grand Prix tournament, yet he's there. But that's okay, well, we see a lot of familiar faces there, and some of them are not starting in Sharjah, they're gonna have to wait till the second tournament. I think you can check the schedule of these events. Well, mostly the reaction from the players to what I read was positive. They have little concerns, as I voiced already, about Swiss format, but I know, I hope it's gonna work out. Yeah, okay, now I got it back. Yeah. Hello, Dimitrios and everyone, Alex Smith. Yeah, well, thanks, put a better shirt today. It's a little warmer now, so I know I've been kind of sitting there all bundled up in warm clothes, but no, thankfully the weather is changing. But anyway, let's just set it aside, I think we'll be meeting later this month, of course, we'll talk about this great event, the Grand Prix tournament. But there is another event which is no less important, is happening now, and it's taking place in Tehran, in Iran. This is Women's World Championship. Now, 2 rounds in, this is what we have, the survivors. Here they are. Well, there is only 16 of them left. So in round 3 we have the following matchups. Now, about the players missing from the list. First of all, we'll start with the world champion. I will call her world champion probably for years to come, Hu Yufan. I know that she announced that she won't play in women's tournaments anymore. I guess, she had some reasons, because they would bounce her on and off, from world championship title, because she didn't want to play knockouts. Then she would come back and play a world championship match with the winner of the knockout, and she would win. She already defeated Anna Ushenina and Maria Muzachuk. And that's only the last 2 of her victims. She probably won it before as well. I just don't recall. Anyway, Hu Yufan felt that she didn't have anything left to prove. And no, her decision, agree with that or not, it's quite understandable. When we talk about Hu Yufan, of course, it's very fresh in our memory what happened to her in Gibraltar, where she came to play an open tournament that she played before and ended up playing 7 women out of 9. Of course, the organizers claimed, as they usually do, oh, that's the computer who does the pairings. I have my doubts about this. We talked about that stuff 2 weeks ago, and I really don't see it possible. I mean, obviously, you can put different criteria over there in your parameters of your pairing software, and no, it's never really announced. So it's sort of up to discretion of the organizer. If you want an example, okay, let's say this. What should take preference? Alternating colors or playing a player that is closer to the normal bracket? By normal bracket, I mean 10 players in a point group. The number 1 plays number 6, number 2 plays number 7, and so on. Now, how much of a rating difference we could allow if we want to stick with strict alternation of the colors? Well, the usual default thing, at least in the software I'm using for my tournaments, is 80 points. Now, then it depends, of course. If we have a sort of a random open tournament, well, then 80 points doesn't seem a whole lot, right? I mean, find me a player who would rather have white against a girl 50 points below him, rather than have black against somebody 300 points below. I mean, obviously you'll take a lower rated player. Colors, never mind. Not to mention, well, when you pile up a number of blocks early in a tournament, it increases your chances of getting white later in a tournament. So we can sit there and debate this, I will stick in my opinion that something there was fishy. Well, that apparently, the organizers thought it was a good idea to have women play each other to determine women's prizes, but distribution. Maybe they have a point with that, but, well, it's not how it was announced, right? So all the female players, they came over there to play just a strong open tournament. How it worked out, whatever. Now, the question is, of course, what are you going to do about it? Players do complain about the pairings all the time, you know that. Well, Hu Yufan, went to protest this in a dramatic fashion. Well, of course, you remember the story when she came out to play in round 9, and she played in men that time, so the Indian Grandmaster, and she decided to lose the game on purpose, started the game with G4 and then F3, inviting that fool's mate on move 2, her opponent, well, didn't expect it, actually played a wrong move d5, so the mate didn't happen on move 2, but 5 moves into the game, Hu Yufan's king was already on d2 and she resigned. Obviously, huge controversy about this. I know I'm kind of returning to this, but now with some passage of time, I wonder what your opinion of this thing is. Particularly with the eye on the Grand Prix tournament that's about to start. Which, it's fairly easy to run normal pairings when you have a tournament like Gibraltar. 255 players, 10 rounds. Well, they're always going to be sort of okay. Well, some of the low-rated players, they may visit, top boards early in the tournament, but then, of course, they're going to drop down, and well, that separation will happen. But I mean, you just let the computer do this. Let the chips fall, whichever they may. But with 18 players, indeed, I don't know. I don't know about that. Well, think about this. If there are two guys playing each other on top, and then everybody expects them to play each other, but one of them would get 3 blocks in a row. Others probably don't care. They say, okay, let these guys play. They'll probably play to a draw and we'll catch up. Maybe they wouldn't want this pairing to be separated. I don't know. Well, we can only see how it works out. Well, yeah, coming back to Hu Yufan, well, just one thing I want to add to all this. I recently visited China. I was there in December, the first time, played the tournament, Hainan International. And I familiarized myself a little bit with the way chess works in China. Obviously, everything's run by Chinese Chess Association. And it's basically a bunch of guys, with jobs, day jobs, right? To run chess events. Well, you may call them bureaucrats. Okay, fantastic. I hope, since they're probably not listening to us, let's just call them a bunch of bureaucrats. Fine. Now, I'm sure they were not happy to see Hu Yufan dropping out of World Championship. Because what a bureaucrat does, well, he writes his quarterly or yearly reports, saying, all right, our players did this, this, and that. They want girls under 12, they want boys under 8, whatnot, our team did this, won Chess Olympiad. But a big entry in that report is, well, our player Hu Yufan is once again a world champion. She won a world championship or defended her title. That counts for a lot in the way, the job performance is reviewed. And when a player like this decides not to do this, it's a big blow for the Chinese Chess Federation Association. So possibly there was some pressure coming back home, and that probably proved to be too much for still a very young person. And well, I hope it all works out for her. I don't want Hu Yufan to quit chess. I'm sure she can do other things in life, but what may be gained for some other walks in life, would certainly be a loss for the chess world. So that's my opinion. Anyway, so she's not there. So let's go back and take a look at the remaining bracket over there. Now, the pronunciation of Chinese names, it's always a iffy thing. I try to look at different sources. Now, looking at the player ranked number 1 now. Yu Wenyun, it's one way it's pronounced, and some people say Zhu Wenzun. Well, anyway, certainly, well, to me it's a mystery how to pronounce the sound represented by the letter J in this situation. Anyway, so she's facing Olga Giria, who's no old hand, in Russian women's team. She never really played high board, but she was in some of their winning Olympic teams. She's a steady player, and well, still young, of course. And appears to be in good shape, but Yun, I think, plays the best chess now. She won the Grand Prix series of events, women's events, and now, well, she is, in my opinion, is the favorite to win this whole thing. Looking at the second matchup, we have Pham from Vietnam, who maybe somewhat surprisingly eliminated. Did she eliminate Goryachkina, the young Russian star? I think that's what she did. And now she's facing Anna Muzachuk. Now, Maria didn't show up. Speaking of losses, of course, Maria would be the defending champion of the knockout event. So she decided not to come, but her sister is there, Anna. I think Anna doesn't like her younger sister to upstage her. This is what happened recently with the this knockout championship and the world championship match. So Anna is out for blood, she's playing very well. Alexander Kostyanyuk, of course, former world champion. She won one of the knockouts. Playing the veteran, Pia Kramling, who cannot be taken lightly. Pia is a very experienced player, and time has no power over her. Even she still plays very good chess. Maybe she dropped some rating points and she's no longer in the 2500 territory, but Pia is Pia, so that's going to be a tough matchup. Now, Sopiko Gramishvili is a popular player these days, obviously Mrs. Giri, as we call her, and she is the survivor of some of the most intense tiebreaks, and we'll get to this. Okay, others. Alright, let's go to chess. Yeah, favorites, well, they don't always have an easy road to victory. So first example I want to give you is the game between young Russian grandmaster Anna Kashlinskaya, who's also part of a chess family. Her husband is Radoslav Wojtaszek, international chess family. I love those. And she's a pretty decent player, also knocking on the door of the Russian Olympic team. And she had to win this game because Anna won game 1. Now, here we go. Win on demand. Kashlinskaya opens up with d4, and I'll sprint through the opening. That's the Grunfeld. With the popular line of bishop e6, of course, played by Grishuk and some other experts on the Grunfeld. In white in c takes d5, because white seemed a little reluctant to do this. But black now wonders what to do with the bishop on e6 after white closes the center. Now, such positions are also known from Queen's Gambit decline, but then the black bishop, of course, is on e7, and the pawn is on e6. So here knight h5 came, but I don't think that's what Grishuk played. He actually played the move bishop c8 in his game against Boris Gelfand, just returning with the bishop back. Knight h5, of course, possible. Now white will preserve the bishop. And now this. Now, well, white enjoys his rook on c1, that allows her rook on c1, that allows her to push the b pawn forward. And then the stage is set for dealing with the knight on b8. We will see in a few moves. d4, standard Grunfeld breakthrough. Now you have those fantastic bishops, well, aiming at white's queen side. And of course white is not fully developed yet, but there is one factor there. They may outweigh all others, is the knight on b8. It just cannot develop. Well, the Russian name, so Kashlinskaya, well, okay. It's not so difficult for me. Yes, so in this situation, we're looking at this knight on b8, and that piece, black has to do something about it. Normal course of events, whatever it might be, is not going to be satisfactory. So, Anna Muzachuk decided to win a pawn on a2. I guess in her mind was a great future for the a pawn, the passer. See, the knight on b8 is not the only victim of this restricting b5 c6. There is also the innocent bystander, the rook on a8, which cannot enter the fray unless now the a pawn goes forward. And now maybe the rook feels better about this because now it's the job to do to support the a pawn. Okay. Clearly, white chooses the right plan. Now, trade everything. Leave the knight on b8. Less pieces left on the board. Easier for white to maintain control. Now, one drawback of bishop c4 is that the b5 pawn loses its faithful protector. May come under attack, but nonetheless I like this move. So we have a trade over there. Time to play g5. Oh, white's happy to see this. And a4. Alright, one thing is clear. White has no time to grab the pawn on h6. It's really irrelevant. Important is to continue with development and stop the a pawn. There, king d2. All logical. Now king to c2. Rook to d6. Are there any better ideas for black? At least the rook comes to d6 and maybe, under the right circumstances, black can sacrifice that poor knight for 2 pawns. But clearly, black's position is quite dangerous. I think this is where Kashlinsky made a serious mistake. Well, maybe she thought, that the c6 pawn requires extra protection against the sacrifice. But the sacrifice in itself is not gonna help black to save the game. If everything's traded, for example, after this move knight c3, I'm looking at this, let me open, the move knight c3. I mean, there's hardly any use for black to do this. Okay, you can play that and you take on c6. But it's only gonna be 2 pawns for a knight, because the a pawn is gonna be gone. Now, you can't take c6 and protect your pawn on a3 at the same time. So white end would have rather pleasant technical task in store. Obviously, no, knockout tournament must-win situation, but objectively speaking, white should be winning. So based on that, the white knight should have just come to c3. It looks more compact, you don't want your pieces hanging. Important job is to protect the pawn on b5. Now white absolutely doesn't have to do anything else, but go rook a1, king to b3 and eliminate the pawn. Now you might even sacrifice some of your kingside pawns, but you gotta make sure that then you're gonna win the knight and retain one of your pawns on the queen side. Now if black attempts what she attempted in the game, then simply f3. Just stay there. Well, black has, no future in this position. I believe that black has lost. So Kashlinsky went wrong. Well, perhaps she could have done knight c3 here as well. But she went knight d4. I think she was attracted to this knight f5 check in this situation. Still, knight c3 was the way to go. This. I really dislike this move. Now, that's the last thing that white wants, is to premature action on the king side, where black may obtain counterplay, because the white king is going away. And even if this is sort of an extra knight for white, well, the knight is a slow piece and may have a hard time dealing with a remote passer on the king side. Obviously, f3 was superior to this. Now, maybe she was concerned about that one. But when we calculate, we see this nice in-between move. Aha. So black doesn't get to win the pawn on b5. The rook gets pushed back. Then the white knight can go anywhere. So this would not have helped. So I assume e5 would be played right away. Well, just go back. Just go back and return to c3. Well, sometimes a chess player has to swallow his or her pride, and admit a mistake. In this case, white might even think, alright, great, with that pawn on e5, there is more future for my knight from c3. Can come to d5 or e4. Well, f4. Yeah, too much reliance on tactics. And another move, g3. Alright, so the pawn is indirectly protected because of this fork. But Muzychuk correctly just played king h7. Now white is kind of torn between the desire to win the pawn on a3 quickly and the need to protect g3, and the worries about that h passer. So she went rook c3, but that's already not ideal. So there's certain lack of harmony now in white's position. Knight f5 allows rook d5, and that wins the b5 pawn. So she tried, but then the king went the wrong way. How are we gonna remove that pawn from a2? Counterplay comes. Great move. Now black is set to simply eliminate all white pawns with this great shot. Back to the exchanges strategy. But you can't get this anymore. Now the rooks become very strong here. Just can't protect f4. Now I don't think white can win anymore because there's just too many things to worry about. That king that is under attack from the black rooks, the h-pawn that can come forward, and you need to go after that knight on b8 that will relegate the rook in some passivity. And besides, well, black, when she sacrifices on c6, only needs to eliminate one pawn. That's the f-pawn. I guess it's gone. Already after this checks, there's simply nowhere to go. If the king steps away from that rook on f3, then black can sacrifice. Very disappointing draw for Kashlinsky, who came extremely close to tying the score in the rematch and taking Muzychuk to the tie breaks. Well, didn't happen. Oh, another of pre-tournament favorites, the Georgia's #1, Nino Khurtsidze, met with... no. Wrong game. Nana Dzagnidze, of course. Well, that's her game. My bad. Also won her first game against a somewhat unknown player, Olga Zimina. We don't see her often in tournaments. Well, she obviously of Russian extraction, but I think she's married and she lives in Italy. And, but yet she's not a bad player, and well, she eliminated a higher rated player in the first round. Now, Dzagnidze wins game 1, and now she has the white pieces. What can be easier than make a draw with white? Well, maybe easier said than done. 124 points difference. Dzagnidze is rated 25-25. Yet, nerves. Okay. Now, this is a little extravagant, this line with bishop b4, but I played it myself. And I think it's a good choice, because white's tempted to go knight d5, but then there are some issues with the knight later can be pushed back. And in the game continuation, black accomplishes the most important thing that she needs in a situation like this. She creates an unbalanced position. Immediate capture over there. And this active setup. I actually like black's position here. It's not clear to me how white is gonna position her central pawns. Obviously the move d4 is not what you want, because e4 then would make this g2 bishop passive and leaving that c4 pawn unprotected, and the typical target for attack, no, Nimza Indian style. Other ideas? No, well, probably knight f3 would be a normal move. Now this, I don't think it worked out very well. And black has simple plan, playing the Dutch style, the queen to h5, and now e4. Well, white's strength is supposed to be this bishop, unopposed bishop. But this piece is almost impossible to get into play. Try the long diagonal. No. Try over there. My own pawn is on f4. So that bishop becomes nearly useless piece. And I like the way Zimina handled this situation. She played with a lot of patience, didn't rush at all with her moves. Now, Zagnidze is trying to get something out of that bishop. Maybe a trade on f6. No, well, it didn't happen. Now the bishop is going to be pushed back with the move c5. A tactical justification of this, I assume, in the following line. Now, yeah, first this, bishop there, and now we take, and should white grab this pawn, then in the end, when it's all said and done, black plays this move and wins a piece on the square. Yeah, well, many great quotes from the great man Aaron Nimzovich, and I cannot come up with the one pertaining to this situation except for one thing. Nimzovich said, but I don't have the exact quote. He said that some double pawn formations do not have a weakness. Like in this case, the pawn on c4 is protected, right? But the weakness appears once the pawns begin to move. And that's a fact, right? Well, the opening went very badly for white. She completely retreats. There is absolutely no fault in Zimina's play. Everything's perfectly centralized. And now, it's time to get down to business. This is probably the right move to try to win the pawn on g5, but black's fine with that knight trade, because it's the white bishops that are the problem. Once again, you know, well, as soon as you move this pawn forward, c4 is gonna fall. As soon as you trade, c4 is gonna fall. White has no choice but to keep the pawn on d3. But how to do this? Now, black is pushing forward. Tactics. No, with nothing else but this strong reply. Turns out that there is a pin already on the g file, right? So if you take over there, then comes the queen sacrifice. Oi. We have to go this way. And then I assume black's best move is just to grab that bishop, right? Look at the rook and queen. They simply cannot join the party. Okay, so maybe you can't even run out with the king, because on king d1 there's rook f1. Black just simply threatens to play like rook g4 and then come down to g1. Not to mention that black is ahead material. Rook into two minor pieces. They may be stronger than any queen, but particularly a queen that cannot cross over and come to the king side. I think black is simply winning here. So I'm not able to play this. No choice for Zagnidze but to hunker down like this, king h1. Rook g4 was fine. Very cumbersome, right? Get the rook over there, move the queen, and then connect the rooks. Black builds up. Around here, I had no doubt that black should win this game. Black's absolutely, totally dominating here. Last thing to do, get all your pieces into action. There is that knight on b7, currently doing nothing. This is the winning plan. Get the knight over there. Suppose d4, doesn't matter anymore. Keep the rook on f5. Queen c2, more tactical tricks. It's impossible to take because of the capture on f5. But black just improves, gradually improves. That knight goes over there. Now you play rook g1, the knight comes to g5. This is how black could obtain absolutely decisive advantage by rather simple means. If you continue this line, knight should probably come to h3, and then there may be some other ways for black to win, but I think the move f3 is pretty decisive, because now the white king is in mating net. I mean, the rook's simply coming down to f1. And if white seeks salvation in the endgame, then she loses to knight f2 check. Then the rook is pinned, the bishop cannot take because of queen takes g2 mate, and otherwise black simply wins the queen on e2. This is how this game should have ended, which would be a big blow for one of the favorites, Nana Zagnidze. Of course, it would only take it to the tiebreak, but we'll talk about the tiebreaks a little later, you know. Well, that is some unpredictable ride. I recall from my experience playing knockout tournaments. For a low-rated player, for the underdog, it's almost always an accomplishment to take the match into the tie breaks, because the favorite cannot help it, just gonna get nervous, because they already look past you to the future encounters, and Zagnidze is sitting there, I should get by this girl, you know, and thinking, how am I gonna play Kostyniuk or whatever, or Muzachuk? No, well, don't say this too soon, because you may not get there. Every knockout tournament I played in and I followed as a spectator had its victims among the top favorites. Unfortunately for Olga, she played the smooth queen h6. I think she was very eager to win that bishop. Not a good strategy, considering that the black king is open and the knight on b7 is very far away. And now I give credit to Nana. She immediately hit on the right idea here. Look at this. Queen to g1. This is fantastic. Seemingly, rook g5 should win the game, right? The answer is no. Rook takes. Check. No time to take that rook. You go over there. This. Well, that naked king. Is your queen gonna be the shelter? But then you're gonna lose the exchange. Forget about winning this. Black's probably gonna lose this game to something like this. Mate. Queen e7. What should I do here? Help me. Help me, help me, help me. Check. There. Check. There. Okay, if you go to F8, then I got these two checks. Check and check. So you go up. After this check, you go up. I give you another one. And the journey ends with the loss of the queen. Yeah, so that's the idea of the piece sacrifice. Well, I give credit to Zagnidze for keeping her cool and seizing the opportunity. Well, but I can only feel sorry for Zimina, who deserved to be in a tiebreak. Oh, the game actually went a different way. Now Queen G2, what a great move for us. Obviously attacking that knight. But more importantly, preparing to get the rook into action. Rook h5, an attempt to protect the knight indirectly, but after this, actually white wins on queen e5, rook g1. You can cover both g7 and g8. Sad situation. Theoretically speaking, black could have defended by playing this, and then reply to rook f1, queen e7. But the simplest for white is to force a draw by rook g1. Mate. You go here and I attack again. By the way, know this on account of check. Yeah, but the draw would not have helped black. So, Zagnidze is through. She's gonna be playing in round 3. Alright. Would like to hear your comments. On knockout tournaments in general and on the state of women's chess. Well, please go ahead. Rook h2. I think rook h2 was played. She sacrificed. Okay, pardon me. Queen g1. Queen g2. Rook h2. Queen takes. Check. Dimitrios. It would not have worked. I think she actually played it here or maybe on the next move, but down the exchange, she's lost. Now, while in the position after rook h5 that I was showing, rook f1, you take on h2, queen takes back on h2 with check. You cannot take the rook on f1, your king is in check. Rook f1, okay, no, well, it's lag over here. Now I already said what I meant. No, why, you know? Well, I would like to hear. Personally, don't like Internet Chess Club. Okay, that's official. Now, never forget that opinions expressed on my show are in no way represent the official view of the Internet Chess Club. Well, they gave me this platform and maybe at times they regret doing this, but I am not speaking on their behalf. Let's hear out, you know, the official position of the Internet Chess Club. Personally, don't like knockout tournaments very much, especially the side of World Championship. They're spectacular, but as you rightly said, tie breaks are a lottery. Well, yep, that's what it is. The time allocated on your moves gets shorter. First you play game 25, then you play game 10. the increment becomes 10 seconds, and then you go into the 5-3 blitz, and then it comes to the Armageddon, that already happened, by the way. We'll get to this in time, during our today's show. But all the same, well, there is some attraction in knockout tournaments, because, first of all, there is no collusion, right? I mean, two guys play each other. They may be both Russians, they may both be communist, Komsomol members, they may be brothers, sisters, you name it, but only one of them is going to get through. The solution? Remember in the old days, there was this candidates match. I believe Smyslov played Ribley to qualify to play Kasparov, and Kasparov beat Smyslov. You remember that they had the coin toss, right? No, is that a solution? I mean, rather than have this people play rapid time controls. There is something in using quicker games to decide the outcome of a match. There is something inherently unfair about it, because chess players are not stupid. Well, they know where they stand, and one of them would always consider himself or herself a better player in fast time controls than the other one, and that gives such player an advantage in strategy for the slow games. Oh, was it a roulette wheel? Yes, it was actually. Okay, anyway. Alright, okay, now maybe the roulette wheel, is sort of like more difficult to rig, than a coin toss, but nonetheless, it's blind luck, right? Actually, after a 10-game match, it didn't seem so unfair to me. Well, if you're a better player, and well, then you had enough games to prove it, right? The worst situation we witness here, because it's only 2 games. I mean, I witnessed this time and again when I played knockout tournaments. There are 2 guys, coming to the stage, and one of them, alright, considers himself a better rapid player, a blitz player than the other. Then they simply don't try to win. Now, what is the other guy to do? Like, just go all out? Just take incredible chances in both games? I mean, or count on your just one game with the white pieces? When the faster guy gets white, I've seen those games ending in a draw, literally in 10 or 15 moves. He just plays some solid opening and says, I offer you a draw. Game 1 or game 2, don't matter. I don't think, that such strategy should be rewarded. Maybe the extreme example of this was the matches that they had, candidates matches, when Grishuk didn't seem to bother, playing with the white pieces at all, neither against Aronian nor against Kramnik in their matches. Well, arguably Grishuk was not better than either one in rapid chess. But his chances in rapid certainly were no worse. And he proved it by winning both matches quite convincingly, eliminating pre-tournament favorites. The matches, I believe, were 4 games long, right? Should replay the game after extra time? Well, the problem with that is, I assume, logistics. Now, these days, okay, suppose we don't care about the spectators, because there are no spectators anywhere. Spectators are us. We own the internet. To me, an extra game, oh, great. I can sit there and I can watch it without leaving the confines of my living room. Excellent. For the players, they will get tired. punish them for, okay, one of them will get through, but having played more games would probably be more tired. I think, that the compromise solution would be simply to look at modern chess and say, well, we can play a little faster and still consider this classical time control. Like 90 minutes for the whole game. You don't need extra time after move 40. 90 minutes for the whole game with the same 30-second increment. Then really you can play 2 games a day. When you make this sort of new classical match of 4 games, then indeed, like over 2 days, right? Well, then indeed, a player who said, oh, well, he blocked me, now I have to play Blitz with this guy. Blitz Demon. No, we'll have less of a case to plead, right? Because he had 4 games and 2 whites or whatever you call it. I think this is the compromise solution I myself would welcome. I really don't see any reason why the games these days should last 6 hours. With the modern opening preparation and the way it's played, chess players are also now younger, and well, I'm sure they can handle this. I see old guys, myself included, playing routinely 2 games a day in the American Open tournaments, often 3 games a day now. Now, as more and more tournament organizers in the United States started using this game 90 with the increment time control, they just cram 3 games on a Saturday, right? The tournament they invited me to play in Minnesota starts tomorrow, right? 1 game Friday night, 3 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, all at 90 minutes time control. Alright, granted, you would say, well, come on, some of your opponents gonna be experts. No, well, experts or not, I still have to sit there and work to beat them. I don't know, I think that this is my proposal, my modest proposal. Shorten the time control somewhat. Okay, fine. People need time after move 40 to get their bearings, maybe go to the bathroom, all that. Alright, I played a tournament like this. 75 minutes for first 40 moves. And 15 minutes to finish the game. All with the 30-second increment from move 1. This was used once in my memory, and it's one of the warmest memories in my chess career. Because it was the inaugural American Continental Championship in 2001 in Cali, Colombia. I won that tournament. I won the tournament in Colombia. I like the time control. Anyway, we were talking about favorites. Look at this. We have Zhao Xu, rather, I think would be correct pronunciation, who's a favorite in this match against Raut Padmini. Let me find this one. Difference in rating, once again, over 100 points. Zhao Xu is probably Chinese number 3 or number 4. She's a member of the Olympic team. Pretty good player. So, this is the first game of the rapid tiebreak. So that's still game 25 with 10 seconds increment. Well, great for amateurs. In 3 days you can play a tournament. No, well, yeah, obviously. Well, we're not going to have a lot of people, who would commit to a 9-day tournament. The United States has one of them called the US Open, and it gets its, 400 players. Out of which maybe half, are what you call the people who bring the money, right? So they're adults with jobs, and they take this 9 days to play a tournament. It used to be 12 days. I was a chess pro, right? Played all the time, but in old days, 20 years ago, I would play US Open every year. I like the 12-day format. That would be my vacation, and most of my Grandmaster competitors would show up to play on the quick schedule, and we'll play each other. But why I'll be sitting on 8 out of 8. Good memories, but okay, maybe. I don't know. I think those tournaments are gonna go by way of dinosaurs. Indeed, faster time controls is the name of the game. Anyway, to this position, clearly the Chinese Grandmaster has the upper hand here. She has the great knight and she better pawn structure, with the only blemish being that pawn on b2. But the pawn on b2 is maybe viewed as decoy now. The question is how white is gonna pull her forces together to create a decisive attack against the black king. Well, I was looking at this move. And here's what I thought. Rook takes b2. Time to go. Sacrifice. Check. Alright, you're not walking into a fork, obviously. So you do this. But I got this check. Now, if you go to the corner, then the knight gets into action. Pawn pinned. Double check. Rook mate. That's quite convincing. Therefore, the king has to step to j8, and now simply rook takes h6. Threatening mate in 1, queen h7, or queen e6 if you wish, mate in 2. White's absolutely winning here. Yeah, I also played 5 games in a day once in the Chicago Open. What happened was this. I played my first round game with Emery Tate, the late great Emery Tate, and I lost. That was the only time I lost to Emery. I decided to upstage him, and in a better position, maybe winning position, I sacrificed the queen, looking for a brilliant mate. The mate was there, but I didn't find the right follow-up. So I ended up down the queen, and I lost the game. And then I did something that I don't think I ever did before or after. I dropped out, it was so allowed still, and entered a quick schedule that would start next day. So I think I played 4 games of some rapid time control. And then for the night round, we merged with the rest of the tournament. So I ended up playing 4 rapid games and that game. And actually I was doing great in the tournament, but I guess I did pay the price for that, because a couple of days later when I played the last round game, oh no, it wasn't a couple of days later. It was actually the next day when we played round 6 and 7. I came to round 7 in a clear possession of first place. And I had black against my good old friend Gregory Kaidanov, who beat me and took the tournament. I guess I was just totally exhausted. Anyway, so I was thinking of this move, right? Rook f3. Well, the problem is, of course, that black has a defense. Black must defend against the sacrifice, and this is the right move, knight g6. Somehow, knights get traded. I understand that Zhao was dissatisfied with that. She didn't want this. But truth to tell, she would have retained advantage, but not after rook g4. Rook g4 is a mistake, similar to what happened in the game, because out of nowhere, in this position, white loses her queen. The queen gets trapped. In fact, the position of the black rook on b5, finally, the real meaning of that is revealed, is to control the b6 square, and c5 and b4. All the squares that white queen wished, she had. With that in mind, the right solution is to take. No, then white should immediately switch to the weak pawn, like this. Just like this. White is still better Now, maybe it's far cry from what Zhao expected, but... Well, rapid chess has its own rules. You simply cannot afford looking for the best move, doing your Yefim Geller, if you wish, impersonation. Well, you have to operate with good moves, but most importantly, you have to play them quickly. Well, see Nakamura for details how to do this. Yeah, 40-minute game. That's exactly what it was, I believe, Jacob. I do recall. That was just so difficult day. Yeah, I recall that. In my experience, I like to play a complete tournament with the same time control if possible, but it wasn't always possible. And some tournaments I entered the quick schedule and... But I mean, 4 games maybe, but 5. Once I did it also at the World Open. I played 4, and then the 5th game I was... I don't know, I was just sleepwalking. It was tough. 4 rapid games followed by the night game, a regular time control. That's too much. Anyway, so returning to this, she would have retained her advantage. Instead, she invited a disaster. Played this move. Protecting b2, preparing whatever, but then there is a fork. Oops. She didn't want to go back and walk into that fork on g6. So she went there and then decided to give up a different material, shape, or form. But she had to, right? The queen's under attack, the knight's under attack. An attempt to survive here ultimately did not succeed. Padmini converted her advantage and she went ahead in this match, which she ultimately won. And therefore, instead of China's number 3, Zhao Xu, we are seeing Raut Padmini going against another Chinese player, Tan Zhanyu. Speaking of Tan Zhanyu, she had such a match today. Well, today was the tiebreak against Anna Ushenina, the former knockout champion. I remind you that Anna won it, I think, 2 years or 3 years ago. And then she got to play Hu Yufan. Well, she got the World Championship title, but then Hu Yufan beat her very convincingly. And Anna hasn't fully recovered, I believe, after that. And the tournament in China, I was there. She was one of the invited players. Her face was on all tournament posters everywhere where we played, together with the top ranked in the tournament Yu Yanyi, who eventually won the tournament, a very convincing performance. Great player, I believe he is. But Anna was there, and former world champion and familiar to Chinese chess players because she played Hu Yufan in China. But Anna had a very bad tournament, and after a bad start, she dropped out of the tournament. I don't think the organizers liked it too much. So once again, my advice. Used to be grumpy old man who would say, I don't want this tournament, get out of here. Well, but now, young girls and pretty young women, they let their emotions, I believe, get the better of them. Well, tough business that chess is. So Anna dropped out of our Hainan International Tournament. Maybe she decided to focus on other events. And she was able to get through in round 1. But then her round 2 match against Tan. Okay, let me get the end of this game up. That was a seesaw battle. Now, I am familiar now with Tan Zhanyu. I believe that she's a very talented player. She also played in Hainan, and she played extremely well. She spent the entire tournament on top boards, and she played against some of the best players. She was even better against Yu Yan-yi in their encounter, and she easily won the best female prize in that tournament. I was really impressed with her. And then that huge battle. Now, this game, that's the Armageddon game. Believe me or not, just like it happened in a match between Bodnaruk and I forgot her last name, a local player. First name I remember, Mitra, the Iranian player. Anastasia Bodnaruk barely won. She's many rating points ahead of her opponent, but 4 times she had to fight for her life, and she managed to do it 4 times, winning on demand, and then finally it got to the Armageddon game. I'm talking round 1. And then that was a story in itself, because the Iranian player, Mitra, sorry, I forgot her last name, she had an advantage throughout the entire game. And she only needed a draw, because the Armageddon is played, I believe, in 5 minutes against 4. And the 3-second increment only kicks in at move 60. And with 3 moves before reaching that move 60, when she would get the increment, the poor Mitra lost on time. This is how Bodnaruk got through. This is real drama, people. Real drama. And the story repeated now with different participants. Ushenina, Tanzania. Now, this game, Ushenina was winning in the early middle game. In the middle game, basically. She had a crushing attack. She only managed to win a pawn. And it wasn't enough. And then she made some mistakes. And she was probably somewhat worse in the end game. But she was able to outplay her opponent. Tanzania is a tactical player. Ushenina is sort of more solid. And the crazy run with the Black King should have been punished right here. But you're only down to 2 pawns. And you need to win more than just a piece, right? For them. Yeah, one would say push that pawn forward and it takes over there and you get a queen. Indeed. White threatens to queen, and if the bishop stops, then pawn takes knight, and that's a queen. I know why Anna didn't play this. What about knight takes e6? Or bishop takes e6 for that matter. You run out of pawns. And there lies the answer to this whole thing. The bad position of the Black King. There is an incredible winning line here. It starts not with the move d6. No. With the move rook g1. That's mate. The only move is king a2. Now white plays this. Indirectly protecting the pawn on d5. You take it, then comes this, and the rook's gone. It's almost impossible for black to come up with a good move here. The king is getting in the mating net. Suppose you do this, right? Looks good move. Not so much. Rook b3. Cuts off the a3 square. Now you take the pawn, and there is your mate. You know what's interesting? The chess players, they find mates when queens are on the board much quicker. It's somewhat difficult to do this with clumsy minor pieces, particularly when your king is not participating. Those patterns are almost like from chess composition. How often do you encounter them in your regular games? That's why it's so hard to find. Probably the only move in this position that would defend against mate would be this. But then white plays another incredible sequence. Now e6. You say what? We had it, right? No, not quite. You give up. Now check. there. Unreal. Knight c1. That's a check. Rook b3, another check. You're forced to go into discovery. Doesn't seem like it's a big deal, because if white aims at the piece on e6, she's gonna lose c2 and then the knight on c1. No, the real target is the rook. Okay, say you. Aren't you running out of pawns? Well, the answer is not quite. I mean, this is worthy of white plays and wins. And top honors the next, whatever they call it, festival or contest. Alright, last thing left to do is to round up the pawns and then show your technique with the bishop and knight. But that's when you're gonna be happy for the 3-second increment. Because that was already past move 60. In fact, she missed a win on move 61. She played d6. What a heartbreaker for Anna. Instead, she played d6, and now knight c6 was the best move. This is a mistake. Once again, start the attack on the king. She missed that. She went the other way, and now, of course, Tan recovered. Now, she has this plan of taking on e5 and eliminating pawns. Oshenian tried to stop it with the mate threat, trying to tie down the black knight to protection of the a-pawn. But it wasn't enough. Bishop comes to f5. Attacking white's formerly great pieces. She finds this trick, hoping for the fork. Too bad. This is the answer. Will the pawn's queen now? Not quite. Imagine if her king was on f4, right? Then she could take with the pawn and win the race. Possibly. The king was one step too far. If nothing else to do, Anna had to agree to a draw here, and by virtue of surviving in that wild Armageddon game, Tan Zhanyu is through to round 3. Well, she is now coming as a favorite against Padmini. Now, I was really impressed with Tan Zhanyu, and I know she has some holes in her game. Well, there were some games in the match with Oshenian where Tan simply didn't play well in the endgame, and she was getting outplayed. And with solid technical work from Oshenian, it was impressive too. But I think Tan can only improve as the tournament goes along. She's extremely gifted tactical player. She may surprise people. Okay. What else do we have? The battle between two Georgian players. I believe they're numbers 2 and 3 on their team. Now as they okay, let me see what the rating is. 23, yeah. The numbers 2 and 3, I believe, in Georgia now. That's Batsiashvili and Nino Khurtsidze. Khurtsidze used to be much higher rated. She dropped him in below 2400. But everybody knows that she's a pretty decent player. And there it comes. Armageddon. White has to win. Batsiashvili played a very good game up to this point. She didn't try to do too much. She's known to be a tactical player, and her opponent, Khurtsidze, is known to be a master of positional play. Yet Batsiashvili somehow held her emotions in check, and she played with restraint and gradually increased her advantage. And now she's up a pawn, and she has a better minor piece. What's left to do? No, it's just to win that pawn on f4. To win the game. She pushed forward. Well, when the pawns are not connected, maybe it wasn't the right idea. I know she wanted to go d6, but that separates the d pawn from the rest of the pawn mass. Maybe that's the moment when a chess player shows that he or she, in this case she, simply lacks what we call endgame technique. Endgame technique is, alright, with all the knowledge of positional principles and the basic endgame positions, and the ability to calculate, all given. It's mainly the correct mindset. Do not hurry. Strength of the knight is that can attack targets. Play this move. Aim at knight a5. Force the b pawn to move. And then go for nice and easy journey. Going around. Coming either to b8 or to e7. There are targets to hit all over the place. Black cannot do anything against the white king. Obviously, white is winning. And with the win, she would go through. Instead, d5. Now, there it comes. Hurtsidze sees it's her chance, so she goes for counterattack. And a wild one at that. That's correct. On the face of it, it looks like white should not have any problems winning this. But then you realize that the black king is actually aiming not to come back and help fight the d pawn. No. The better idea is to counterattack win the b2 pawn. We all know how helpless a knight can be fighting against the a pawn. And that's exactly what happened in the game after white played d7, which is probably not the most accurate move. Accurate play required calculation. How do you beat the bishop with your pawns? One plan, of course, is to bring either knight or king to support your passed pawn. Then force the win of the bishop for it. But that's a slow plan, right? In the end, black will create that counterplay. The better way of beating the bishop is to create a second passed pawn. Because if they cannot be stopped on the same diagonal, then the bishop's defenses are split. White needs to create a passed pawn. Therefore, the winning plan. Now, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take on h5 on the next move. Black's too far behind. If she takes, then g6. This is how you split that bishop, right? Now g7 followed by d8 queen. Well, after knight takes h5, this, of course, eliminates one of the dangerous pawns, but then the knight stays alive and grabs the pawn on g6. Okay, we're talking two extra pawns here, and clearly black took her king away from the b pawn, so the game is over. Knight f6 would have seen one of the two Ninos, now Nino Batsashvili, through to round 3, if she found that. Unfortunately, she played d7. Now comes the counterattack. Once again, they say that your knight is slow. The knight is still faster than the king, right? This is what she needed to do. And that. We calculate. King back to e5. Or knight back to e5. So the bishop cannot restrict the knight because the bishop's job is to protect d8. Now you cannot go e3. White is happy to give up that knight and then the two pawns. I don't know what to do here. King c3. Unfortunately, white queens first. And as she queens first, the win is gonna become very easy. You can probably force the queen trade, or you can just grab that bishop and win the game. Because you protect everything. Your knight. And there's never gonna be any perpetual check, because the king runs toward the knight and finds the shelter. Around the knight, behind the knight. Forced win. She missed that too. She went king f4. Now it's really a close call. King e5. Another study-like position. Bear with me, guys. One thing is clear. White doesn't have the time to win the bishop with the knight, because the a-pawn goes too far. There could be some situations where white, for example, if she didn't take. Let's look at this line. Bishop c7, d8. Now you stop the pawn, right? You're ready to give up your knight. I'm not gonna give you that knight. The strength of the rook pawn is there once again. The white knight cannot get on the other side of the pawn to stop it. You always have to be on the same side looking for the streak. And then you're doing nothing but repeating moves. There is no win. No, knight f6 was not played. She didn't think of that. She didn't think of creating the second passed pawn. Obviously, blitz game. Tough. So she played this. And now knight b5. That was the last chance for white to win the game. Blown again. There was a win here, and that's amazing. No, you're not gonna win the bishop for that pawn. No, you want the bishop. And then you queen your d-pawn. Amazingly, but the importance of these pawns now is telling, because the black bishop doesn't have squares on the longer diagonal of the two. After bishop e7, she immediately runs out of the moves. And then fine, black will queen too, but no, queen in second. Finishing second in a two-women race. It's not gonna cut it. On this, the king comes to that bishop. Now, yeah, you queen first, but how's that gonna help you? It's not. White is winning. Extra piece is gonna win the g6 pawn. Amazing position, isn't it? That the black bishop simply cannot stay there. The one diagonal was short enough, and the other one is barricaded by the white pawns. Of course it was blitz, Lars, you know. No, well, what can you do? Look, I'm far from blaming the players. I'm just illustrating, you know, what happened. And such things, to me, it's a matter of practice, you know. When you study the endgame, well, then, even if you don't really have a plan and you don't do this systematically, some things, you know, like it or not, they stick to your memory. And, well, hopefully in a critical situation, they will resurface. Like dominating the bishop like this with the knight from b7. I've seen it in some endgames I studied. I always knew the position. Okay, suppose there are no pawns on the king side, and there is no a pawn. Well, theoretically speaking, if white can win this, the plan is to first come with the king to e8. In reality, it's impossible. Now, force the bishop from this diagonal with the threat of blocking from e7. Alright? So, suppose your knight was on c6, right? So the bishop would have to go to this diagonal. Then you have to move the knight to b7. And then travel back with your king coming to c6. In reality, it never happens because the black king, no matter how far it is, will probably return and interfere. But I saw the pattern anyway, so that's why I was able to see knight b7 while the game was in progress. Obviously, I sit here, there's no pressure on me. I just look at the computer screen, and I have my drink here, and I can sit there and look good. I didn't always look good, when I played in those knockout tournaments. Actually, most of the time I looked bad. So she missed the idea of the knight coming to b7, and after this, well, she was given a second chance. You can still do this, right? King d6. This is forced. Well, back, and you do this again. And you come either to e6 or c6. She played wrong moves. This was actually also wrong. King c4 was the right answer. But anyway. No, it doesn't matter that Nino Batsashvili ultimately played the losing move knight c6. There was no difference for her between drawing and losing. Well, not winning, that's what counted. And here, the white king cannot come to that bishop on c7 anymore, and the a pawn cannot be stopped. Black won the game, and therefore Nino Hursidze, who, as I said, an experienced player, and she's been through wars, now finds herself facing Antoaneta Stefanova, who's one of the most popular women, great women players, also former world champion. She won a knockout, I believe. Antoaneta has a lot of fans, and she's still a pretty strong player. I remember her as a very young girl 20 years ago. Well, she was young and beautiful and a good chess player. Now she's still beautiful and still a very good chess player. She's the favorite in this matchup, but don't underestimate Nino Hursidze. We will see tomorrow and day after tomorrow. Okay, so the parting gift is supposed to be the best game. Well, no, not in this case. I'm sorry, I'm gonna show you an incredible blunder. Now, this was not an Armageddon game. Okay, I'm going back to scene 1. This is a blitz game, so that's game 6. Yeah. This is game 6 between Natalia Buksa, who's world under-20 champion representing Ukraine. Very popular player and very talented too. Maybe the future Antoaneta Stefanova. Playing against Mrs. Giri, who, by the way, after her disastrous result on her home field at Vaikanzi, she kind of shrugged it off, and she plays with gusto and plays her style, tactical, complex games, and luck is on her side a little bit. You will see. Now, it's game 6, right? Buksa needs a draw. Oh, she had a draw in this game a long time ago. She didn't even have to be in this endgame, but endgame is easy to defend. There wasn't any need, to even go to the second rank. Well, what rook does best, it pins pieces, right? Keep that thing pinned, and on the check, you can always come to the middle. Oh, that's a scary looking check, but black doesn't have the follow-up with rook f4. So there is no danger. Somewhat unnecessary, she went rook a2. There comes this check. Alright, look out. You don't want to go to the corner. Yeah. No, technically speaking, there is no mate here. If black gets too eager with this, then the game ends in a draw immediately. Stalemate trick. Yeah, I talked already. Yes, Armageddon means that white has to win in order to pass. That's exactly how it is. Given more time. White's given more time. It's 5 against 4. And of course 2 white pieces. But That was the second round. I'm showing you tiebreak that was played today, this morning. No, this morning US time. So this, of course, would be the pretty way to finish the game and qualify, but black really cannot do much with this. It is a little unnerving to sit there in the corner with the king, but if there is no mate, that's fine. You only go to f1 if you see this whole thing through. Came check. And then the poor young player Natalia Buksa, she gave up too soon. She must have thought, oh, what have I done? What have I done? I lost my rook. So she took the knight and resigned after rook takes a2. Now, once again, since this is move 122, and then doesn't matter, they have the 3-second increment. You already know what I'm talking about. The whole tournament saw it. Wow, you're telling me the answer, the real answer to this mystery. I will say that yes, Yuvin Yun, or if I pronounce her name correctly, I've heard already Zhu and Zun, but anyway, she is pretty dominating. Yes, I believe that maybe she's ready to take the mantle of world champion from Hu Yufan. I really think that she's the best player in the world now, but it's one thing to be the best player in the world and another thing to prove it in this nerve-wracking elimination format with short matches and tie breaks and rapids and blitz and Armageddons. We will see. Now, right, guys, tell me, what about this position? I said already, I gave you a very broad hint that the young Natalia Buksa gave up too soon. King E1 stalemate trick. Fabian, my friend, you know, you take the cake. Do I have a cake here to give you? Okay, anyway, I owe you a cake. Guys, thank you so much. You know, this was my report on the women's championship. I don't know when we're gonna meet next, you know. This thing is usually scheduled for every other Thursday, but okay, let me talk to Sandra about this whole thing. Yeah, no endgame trick. Once again, you know, you gotta study the endgame, because games, as I learned time and again, and it's not only women's chess, men's chess, come this World Cup later this year, you'll see the same thing. Everything's decided in the endgame. All chess players, from Magnus Carlsen down, they'll do themselves great favor by practicing the endgame, studying and practicing, studying and practicing. Practice, practice, practice. I know, I don't usually play music here because I run out of time, but, well, I don't know. That's another thing I need to talk about. I think I have to have the goodbye music track, you know, for my show. But of course, you know, well, the ICC brass may worry about property, intellectual property rights and all such, you know. But anyway, for now, all I can do is to say goodbye and stay tuned and wait for an announcement when we meet next time. All right, guys. Goodbye.